Good morning and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Bob Pace, and I have a secret how to fight child protection services and how to get your children back. That's CPS, Child Protection Services. It's an agency, or actually, it's an arm of social services, and it to most people has been a nightmare. And there's a lot of things wrong with child protection services. And I'm here to help you understand and prepare you if you haven't started or if you already started halfway through your case, make some recommendations. This show is hosted by Vincent W. Davis and Associates. It's a law firm in Southern California. The lead attorney is Vincent W. Davis. He's a family law attorney. He has years and years experiences fighting CPS, and he um, uh, will go locally in Southern California, Northern California, and all 50 states. You can go anywhere. And last week he was in Oklahoma, and then he was in North Carolina. Excuse me, in Northern California. Now the way to get a hold of him is to call the number at the bottom of the screen. Um, and that number, let me see if I can get my finger right where it's supposed to be. Well, it's not going to go there. But anyway, it's a red number. It's 888-888-6582. That's my office. Make sure you say that Bob Pace told you to call in and speak to him or set up an appointment with him because he offers a free uh, consultation for 30 minutes up to an hour, and he'll talk about the strategies of fighting child protection services and how to get your children back. And if you like what he says and you need an attorney, I strongly recommend that you retain him. Uh, you can't go wrong. You need an attorney. And I'll tell you in a few minutes why it's so important to need an attorney. There are three ways to react on the show. One, you can call in right now and you'll get my phone. That's my phone number, my direct line, 626-698-0990. And that's my line, and I can put you live on the show. Um, if you don't want to talk live right now, but would like to talk another time, um, I have the number there that you get to Vincent Davis is 888-888-6582. That's my office. Make sure you mention my name, Bob Pace, um, that you want to speak on the show as a guest. Now, uh, if you a third way is you can make a comment. You can text me a comment. It'll show up on my screen, and I'll read it and I'll try to answer your question. I'm not an attorney, but I have 9 years experience with child protection services. And yes, I was um, enslaved with CPS. I was demoralized, broken apart, lost everything. Got two back of my three children, and lost my home. And it's still a reoccurring nightmare that CPS has done to my family. And I'll talk to you about that. So there's three ways: either 888-888-6582 if you want to speak as a guest, or you want to talk to Vincent Davis for that free consultation of 30 minutes up to an hour. Or if you want to speak now on the show live, it's 626-698-0990. The third way is to type in a comment. Type in a comment. So, with that being said, I know from experience that numerous people I've talked to, over 100 some people, have similar things with CPS. And I'm using CPS because sometimes it's a different name. Um, Sometimes it's called the DHS, Department of Health Services. Sometimes it is. What this is, it's an arm of social services that's a federal government that watches your children. Now, what it means by watching your children is supposed to watch and protect your children. It's a watchdog organization. So if families have disputes or problems or hiccups, they will investigate it. And that's come usually by phone calls that come in. And um, one thing you'll find out, whether I don't know what stage you are in your case, um, that it starts off after a call comes in with the Child Protection Services believing that the alleged call is validated, meaning that they're going to investigate it further, but you are guilty until you're proven innocent in this uh, dependency court, the court that handles our children. Part of family law court, but it's a part that handles our children, dependency court. And that's where they work with minors 18, under 18 years of age. And um, if you have problems at home, um, and someone makes a call in. Now, how calls come in can be coming from professionals, which are required by law to report it, or it can come from friends, relatives, family members. The professionals like school teachers, um, there could be a counselor, it could be a policeman, it could be a fireman, anybody. And what these calls usually come in is that they say the two things that Child Protective Services looks for is neglect and abuse. Is the child neglect or abuse? Now, abuse can be of three ways there. Abuse could be a physical abuse, where a child is punished unnecessary. Maybe the child is slammed against the wall and has a concussion, or they ended up in the hospital that way, or maybe there was excessive corporate punishment. If it's just an injury from a sport injury, that's different, and that can be investigated, and you can prove that differently. So if your child ever gets injured, make sure you document it. Make sure that you have a slip from the doctor or the nurse, whoever saw the child, showing that it was an injury from them participating in a sport or something accidentally. Because you may have to use that, because CPS is full of deception, lies, and not transparent. They're not your friend. And I'm sorry to say that they have a rude awakening. They say they're supposed to do family reunification. Instead, they do family destroying, and it is a really difficult time out there, because we all are struggling. We're all struggling for work, for income, and everything like that. Now, I mentioned earlier about a lawyer and why it's so important to get a lawyer. In my case, I didn't get a lawyer, and I tried to fight it on my own. I thought, my background, all my years of experience, my college degrees would prepare me to work what I thought was an honest agency, what I thought other agencies were honest. All I found was deception in a lot of things. And so, uh, with that being said, I put a lot of trust, and I lost my trust with the agencies, and I'm now speaking on your behalf. There's a big problem with our social services system. And I'm not here to talk about everything in social services. One of the impacts I've noticed recently is the influx of immigrants. Right now, if anybody comes to the United States, it's an open door policy. You come to the United States, you may be arrested by the local state police or anything like that. There's a big conflict right now between the border police and the state police, and it's a sad state of affairs, because it isn't like the old days when we came to Ellis Island and we were on a place where we learned the language. English is the common language spoken here. There's nothing wrong with other languages, but we need to have one language that's spoken by everybody. Also, it's important they learn about the government, the branches of the government, how they work, how they function. So you'll take a course in U.S. government. You also need to know the history because a lot of history will help and so forth. So um, those are three requirements that are mandate before you become a U.S. citizen. And then after you become a U.S. citizen, then you're integrated into the United States and have access to social services. Right now, if you bring a family of 5 or 10 or 15 and you're in a home that really only accommodates 2 or 3 people, you are causing neglect to the family members. And that was the second thing. I had talked to you about abuse, physical abuse. There's also verbal abuse through domestic violence. You probably say, what verbal abuse? Well, anytime you argue in front of your children or with another parent or another person or family member, you create what's called domestic violence. It doesn't have to be physical to be domestic violence, but yelling in front of your children is bad. Also, doing alienation with the other parent is bad. Some of you may be going through a divorce or a separation, and there's a custody battle. And what one parent will do is try to pit the other parent will do. But alienation does not stop with parents. There's alienation by family members, where a family member will try to take away the children and alienate the children from the mother and father. And in my case, my wife's side of the family was trying to do so. And that's where it started with my reporting. That really was substantiated. Now, um, at that point, right now, there's a law that anybody that they receive a complaint has to be investigated. I think it should further go that anybody that wants to make a complaint do more so than verbally. I think it's too easy for them to tell stories. It's too easy. They need to write it down and sign their name to it. That name can be kept in confidential, but they need to write it and send it in. That way, it's a little bit more sincere. When you're asking people to write something down and sign their name to it, they're going to think twice before they make allegations. 2 days ago, I had someone from North Carolina said that his um, fiance's ex-husband, because they'd gone through a messy divorce, was saying stories like the children are eating carpet. Now, even billy goats would have a hard time doing that. There are some ridiculous stories out there, and the problem being is CPS is not smart enough to know the difference. So they investigate everything and they think it's real, and they go through the investigation process. Now, um, with the domestic abuse, which is domestic violence, um, you don't want to argue. You want to use something called timeout. We preach so long now with our kids, we steer away from corporate punishment to timeout as a punishment. We see this all the time. Football teams take a timeout to resolve an issue, to settle something. A player gets ejected, he gets timeout. Um, there's timeout used in all kinds of places, and it should be used by us as adults that if we don't agree about something, and instead of arguing, is do a timeout, do a sign like this, timeout, timeout, you don't want to talk any further, and then go for a walk. Either both of you go in separate ways for a walk, but get away from each other. Hopefully, in a day or two, you'll be able to talk about the issues that are bothering you. It is hard to have a family and not disagree or not have misunderstandings. A lot of our problems is communication, and we need to develop a good communication. We need to know how to communicate and how to get your point across without angering a person. We work hard as it is. As parents, our partners, or relatives, we're not born with a manual of how to raise children, how to have children. I mean, having children is the fun part. It's a lot of hard work, and the woman goes through a lot of pain. But that part is easy. The hard part is raising your children right, raising your children so they respect each other, and then also as a parent know how to feed them, clothe them, and get them to school and get them educated so they learn things. It's the law that all children must go to school, must have schooling. It's the law. And you're stuck with that till they're 18. You're responsible as a parent. There's some heavy court cases going right now where two parents are being charged with the murder of four students at school because their son had really serious problems and ignored those serious problems, and they helped him buy a gun, and he shot four classmates. And there was a lot of telltale warning. Anyway, it's a big thing in there. So uh, we are responsible as parents until the child turns 18. And if it ends up there, they can end up in juvenile court, dependency court. Um, so with this domestic violence I bring up, it is necessary punching each other, or hitting each other. It's also verbiage, and words do hurt. Words do hurt. And uh, there's a guy that is going to have to pay close to $65 million because he was still using words that hurt. Um, I don't know if the message get across. I'm not downplaying that he's a bad guy, but he has a problem with his anger, and he has a problem with when to stop. And that to me is a negative thing. There's a lot of good things, but I'm not here to talk about elections or who should be the president or something like that. I'm just trying to tell you that words do hurt. Think of that. $65 million because you want to still say someone's bad name or put them down or anything like that. What you need to do is walk away. It's the hardest thing to walk away. You may feel you're right, but through my class in anger management, I learned that it does no point. We all get anger. We may play harder. That's it. Keep it inside of you. Work harder. Do harder. Take a time out. Take a walk. I live close to the beach, so it's easier for me to go for nice walks. The beach is a really great place to unwind. A bike ride is a good way to unwind and so forth. And as I was saying earlier about a manual, I wish there was a manual that you're born with that you could read. It's like you get a computer, there's a manual with it. You get any kind of toy, there's usually a manual or directions or something. But with children, God doesn't give you a manual. You have to learn from your experiences growing up. And that leads me to talk about foster care because a lot of children that have grown up and are on my show talk about their experiences when they were foster kids, and then they get old enough to have children. They're still messed up because of the bad experience in foster care, and suddenly they're being investigated. It's kind of like the cycle of repeating itself. There's a lot of issues. We can't fix it overnight, and your case is different than the next person's case. You have something common, though. You're dealing with child protection services, and it's a agency that is not giving. It does not help. I found out it's a money making. It's $1 billion business. Their sole interest in taking your children is to get money for them because the federal government and the state government pays a lot of money. There's no watchdogs watching that money. I remember one time my youngest was in a foster care, and they had to use the money, so they bought him 100 pairs of socks. And there was something on the news about someone buying some excess of underwear or something like that. It's really ludicrous. There's so much corruption with the money. And why do they need the money? Well, in my case, and I was in Southern California, the agency that was investigating me has a Taj Mahal of a building. It's many, many stories high. It looks like the World Trade Center in New York or something, the old one that used to be there, or the World Trade Center somewhere else. But it's a huge building, and in there is the top dog. And I did talk to the top dog. I talked to all the things, and they were just goes in one ear, goes out the ears. They do nothing. The grunts, the social workers that have now been replaced in California with younger and inexperienced social workers. They're like 22 years old. My social worker was so young, fresh out of school, but had no experience. They should be mentored by a social worker that's been in the system for at least 10 years. And then they are mentored for 10 years. I think it takes 10 years for you to get Caesar experience. And social be knowledgeable how to do family reunification and not be tempted by bonuses for your Gucci purse or bonuses for your BMW car. In my case, there are paid bonuses, and they are bringing your children. They don't pay very, very much. That's another thing. In California, was going bankrupt, and one of the things the governor did is get rid of social services, experienced workers and high paid, think he could cut corners and cut costs. Instead, it's been compounded. Also, I think social services really impacted by the influx of immigrants tax them. Because if you right now, in fact, I have been told that if you renounce your citizenship, you're better off getting aid from social service by coming in as an immigrant. Because if you're collecting Social Security, which I am, they raised it last year for the cost of living. I mean, right now where I live, a gallon of milk is $4 a gallon. A gallon of gas is $4. It's expensive more in other areas, but I can never believe when a gallon of milk. Now I'm 74 years old, and I've been on my own since I was 18. I moved out of my home when I graduated in the summer of '68, and so I've been on my own. I've bought 4 homes, and I've done very successful in my life. My involvement with CPS didn't happen until I was 65. And it did not happen to me when I had a job. It happened to me when I didn't have a job. And I was going through a lot of things with my parents dying and had to deal with their belongings. And I took their belongings to my home. And that's another thing I can tell you later about what happened with my case. But it took 3 years in CPS. And finally, halfway through it, I got an attorney. And that attorney was Vincent W. Davis. And he got back 2 of my 3 children. One child was so brainwashed and alienated by social services that they did not want their mom and dad. They asked for a divorce. They had their birth certificate sealed. They had their name changed. They only divorced the parents, they divorced their brothers. Now, their brothers still see them. So they're still in touch. I encourage that. But when you get divorced from your parents, you're divorced from the whole family. You have no more a grandparent. So she thinks her adopted foster care people are great, you know. And at the time that she was taken from my home, I was broke, and I can understand. I mean, she was spoiled because she's a Barbie girl living in a Barbie world, and we had Disneyland passes, and I had to stop paying for those because those are expensive. I mean, they're over $2,500 a year now for a Disneyland pass for one person. So it's very, very expensive. And when I was working, I could afford it. I could work and have nice things, a nice home, private schools, and vacations and everything there. But anyway, this all goes back to domestic violence. And so my wife and I did argue. So I did have one problem with domestic violence, which is a physical abuse, I guess. But that's not the one where they pinned me on. That was brought up. It wasn't to the degree that was awful, but it's still awful today. It's really hard to work through it because my family is very upset with CPS. They're very angry about CPS. I'm the only one that can seem to talk about CPS. My wife, who's very, very dear, learned a lot from her involvement in CPS. She found out that CPS should be involved with her mom and dad. And the allegations that her parents were doing to us were very detrimental. My wife was raped because my parents showed no protection for her when she went to a concert at 15. Even her sister, who was over the age of 18, didn't protect her. And she was supposed to watch her, and she got disorientated from using the bathroom and coming out and not seeing her sister or her friend or anything. And 2 guys jumped her. And her first experience sexually was being raped and pregnant. And it was a horrible thing there because she was innocent at the time, very naive. And she decided to give the baby up for adoption, not terminate it. And I'm glad she did because the baby turned out and he came back in her life at age 20 And now at age 42, he's a JAG in the Air Force. Has a wonderful family, grandchildren, and his wife is an attorney. They're living a very uh, nice life. So, I'm not here to talk about pros and cons of abortion, but that case, the abortion from being raped turned out to be okay. I mean, but that being said, and these are my views, is that abortion not be a form of birth control, and it should be a last resort, and it should be decision of the people involved, especially the woman. It isn't right for us guys to sit there and dictate to a woman how to take care of her body. She'll have to live with it. She'll have to live with the decisions she makes. And my wife has been raped twice, by the way. She had a date rape, and again, there's no protection to my wife when my wife was growing up. So, and with that second child, she kept it, raised it as a single parent till the child was 5, and that's when she came into our family. And she now is 36, very productive. She left before we had involvement with CPS. She moved out at 25. She stayed home and lived at home, and she went to school, got a college degree and a master's. And we're all very educated. My wife has 2 college degrees. I have 1. And so that was really, 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 really good there. So you have to be careful with arguing and domestic violence there. That really is a no-no. And a timeout is a perfect solution for it. You got to eat crow and grit your teeth and do a timeout. I find that also is true with working professionally with people. You may lock horns and you don't want to yell at your boss or something like that. You just want to do timeout. We'll talk about this later. We'll come back to it. And so that's really important that after your timeout, you think about it and you try to come back. And it'll be worked out. I think a lot of times our people in Congress should take a timeout at times because there's some heated stuff that takes place. I know Parliament in Great Britain, there's some heated argument. And it gets quite noisy and physical with shoes flopping down and insults. We got to be careful insulting people. We really do. And again, as I told earlier, there's a person that has to pay a $65 million fine. I think it's excessive, but he probably has the money to pay it, and maybe he'll think twice so he doesn't carry on. But I don't know. He hasn't changed that behavior. And anyway, the other part is sexual abuse. And that's something that people may not think about or anything like that. It's sexual abuse. It could be with parents with gratification, based sexually with their children, or maybe using their children to take pictures and selling the pictures on the internet, or prostituting their children. There is a bad case of child prostitution. There's a bad case of child slavery. And I live in the area where it's the number one place to have children, young children, abducted. Why? I don't know. It's maybe because the income is really high there and there's a lot of beautiful people here and we're close to the ocean, the container ships, they're shipped over. They're so quick that children are picked up. They are talked into a modeling agency and the parents come down and interview and think it's all checked out. And they leave their children there to work through a modeling or learning a dance or something. Then they find out that the next day the agency's gone. They've disappeared. I've seen this happen time and time again. Live footage of this where they go and look for children that have been stolen. And there again end up in the slave trade. So sexual abuse. So I've talked about physical abuse divided into 3. And I've talked about the physical part, abuse divided into 3. The physical part, the domestic part, and the sexual part. The second area that CPS looks for is neglect. Now, neglect means the child has not had a meal or is starving or is not taking a bath, is maybe locked up in the room excessively, not go to school. Looked at. Some parents have emergency come up, they go to the hospital, and they leave their young children with another young children. That is against the law. You got to have someone over the age of 18 to watch children that are under 18. And there's a lot of trickiness in there. When in doubt, you gotta have to take the children with you when you go to the hospital. And I know with COVID, there was some experiences there. One talker in the show said that that she couldn't bring her child into the hospital when she had to have her baby. You got to make arrangements. You got to have your other partner, your husband or wife, or the wife's having the baby, then you got to have your husband ready to watch the kids. Raising a family takes two people. I hear a lot of times people say, "Oh, I can do it easy as a single person." Yeah, you can. You can struggle with it, but my wife struggled with it. She had to go to college. She had a stigma of being with a baby. Her dating life was nonchalant. It was terrible, and what she was going through. And she um, was not only um, raped twice, she was molested as a young child by her brother. And she did not really remember this until later it came out through CPS. And I was not accused of molesting my children. My wife was not accused of molesting her children either. So we didn't have sexual abuse involved. Um, the only thing they ever came through with that case you want to know is called neglect. And why was there neglect? Well, without a job, I couldn't afford to put my parents' belongings in storage when I moved them to my house. I had no choice. They need to vacate their home, liquidate it, and want to give belongings to the family and friends and so forth. And so I very foolishly took the belongings. I should have said no. And what it is that when you die, you don't take your belongings with you. I mean, some cultures still bury yourself with all your belongings, but when you die, you die. And again, I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, but I kind of am very um, unusual because there's things I enjoy about it. Um, my children, my wife are Catholic, and my wife is very devout Catholic, believes it is entirely there. And her family is Catholic, but her family did some really bad things, and they should have been investigated in there. Um, because her family was making allegations that we were not feeding the children, we were not taking them to school, we were not having electricity or gas paid. I had numerous utility bills. I save every utility bill that goes back eons of time, so that was easy to disprove that. As far as eating, none of them were underweight. None were like there. I had to reduce things like Coke or soda pop, cookies, chips. They cost money. I had to cut corners somehow. Um, my Social Security does not afford a family of four in where I live. I live in Orange County, which is the most expensive county to live in. I live down at the beach, which even makes it more expensive. And so I'm being punished because I choose to live at the beach. The beach has been a part of my life. I feel like I was born with gills. I still love to surf. I've surfed all my life. I, you know, Surfing has been a mainstay of my life. I do it with everything I do in my life. So the beach is someplace there. At this moment, I want to take a time out to talk again about getting an attorney. And why do you need an attorney? It's like a doctor. When you go something wrong with you, you go see a doctor. You don't try to fix it yourself. Yes, there's home remedies, but if you're going to do something like open heart surgery, you need a doctor. Well, fighting CPS is like open surgery. Um, yes, I'm live now. A place named Mike Player Unlimited just said, "Hi, Bob. Are you live now?" Yes, I am. Yes, I'm live now. Hopefully, y'all are hearing me. Um, uh, Let me see here. You hear me? Okay. You hear me? Okay. Now they're coming in. Okay. Wow. I just typed in once and repeated it. I don't know if there's something wrong with my. Hopefully, net. I'm coming through okay. I have a producer. I'm pretty sure she would have told me that if she couldn't hear me or so like that. Test, mic player test. Well, okay, I did. TEST test. Okay, I just test. Um, um, hey, Mike. I was just talking about people calling in. Hold on a second. We lost my phone number here. Hold on. Calling live. I don't know what happened to it. There's something in private chat here. Oh, okay. You can hear me. Good. They can hear me, but one of my banners came off here. Let me see what happened to it. Calling right now. Yeah. I don't know why that would erase, but anyway, I was talking about um, the importance of getting an attorney. And somebody named Mike, I don't know where you're calling from. Um, oh, you do hear me. Good. Good, Mike. Thank you. Anyway, um, to get an attorney, they are the only ones that can navigate and work through the system. CPS is very complex. There are a lot of laws. I can tell you one right now. Do you know what an 888 is? And I'll tell you about that a little bit there. But it's a motion you make when there's new evidence that you want to introduce into court, and you want to change something. So you have to have an attorney that knows all that. And again, I'm not an attorney. I've learned a lot, and I could fight CPS, but only an attorney knows how to do open heart massage. And if you want to get your kids back, you have the beginning. I exposed myself in the beginning by not getting an attorney. I trusted the social services, the child protection agency of the social services. I trusted the police department, the fire department, the code enforcement. I had the day that they finally got into my home because I refused to live in my home. And by the way, there's a law that says no one can enter your castle. The only time they can enter your home if there's extreme emergency and like there's a life or death, someone's dying in the house and you have to enter it, or there's live gunfire, or there's someone in the house that's requesting emergency or help. They need a court order, and I didn't know that. They need a court order or a warrant to come into your home. Social workers can never come into your home. They want to because they want to see for themselves what these stories are. And I thought, well, when I was tricked by a detective that got me to follow him through very devious ways, I came home and there was 3 social workers, 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement, 3 uniformed police officers, and the detective all want to come into my home. And I thought, well, gee, I have nothing to hide. I did not know that my parents' belongings would be a nightmare as it turned out to be. And they came into my home with their big combat boots and put dirt and soil, ruined my house further, and stepped on bamboo chairs, broke them. They said, "Oh, look at that window out here. Come here, buddy. Look at the window. They have a swimming pool. They have so much. This home is beautiful." And here they are. They're supposed to, um, yeah, right. And Mike did say something. Catch your pants down. Well, I didn't have anything to hide. I mean, my parents' belongings were in the house. Furniture was stacked. It was cluttered. There were boxes. I was sorting through them and stuff. But also because of the economics, time without a job, I lost my job through no fault of my own. And that's because of the state of California going bankrupt, and they needed to write me IOUs for the contract work I had in construction with the state of California, and they thought they'd be really smart and use that public funds that was promised to me. I'm talking over $50 million that they used. And I couldn't get credit lines because the banks in 2007 were writing too many predatory loans and they crashed. And I had a predator loan and I did fight it, but all I got was $5,000 on a $2 million home. So, I got talked in by a predator loan. It's one thing about predator loans, you got to stay with it. But let me go back to the attorney here because I'm starting to digress here. It's very important um, that you have an attorney, and Vincent W. Davis is a good attorney. He's a family law attorney, He'll handle your case through dependency court. He's a trial attorney. He has sued CPS. He works in Southern California, Northern California, and all the states. You just have to call in at 888-888-6582. Say him that Bob Pace said you to call in and schedule a free 30-minute to an hour consultation to talk about the strategies of how to fight CPS, Child Protection Services, and how to win and get your children back. He'll go over the strategies for that time. If you like them, retain them. You will have to be paid, like all attorneys. Any good attorney, you have to pay. All of you out there that have no money for attorneys and think the public defender is going to help you, it won't work. I had a public defender. I went through 5 of them and gave up. They're too busy. They're too young, inexperienced, and they have too many cases. Their average caseload where I'm at is 20 people. And if you can imagine, that doesn't give you much time. And the court, the dependency court, is a disaster. They're not transparent in court. It says that CPS will allow you to see the court proceedings. No, they have you come in when all the proceedings are done, and they say, well, do you understand what we found, and blah, blah, blah. So there's no transparency. You should be in family court, just like you're on any other kind of court. It's like 2 things work against you. You're guilty till you're proven innocent, and you're not in the courtroom. And that is a sad thing to do, be not in the courtroom, because a lot goes on in there. You have the lawyers for the social workers. You may have 2 or 3 lawyers there. Then you have the judge, the clerk, the bailiff, and then you have the counselors and the therapists and the social workers. And, you have all these people in the courtroom, and they're all pals of wowsy with everybody, the public defenders. Of course, when you have a paid attorney like Vincent Davis, he'll help you. Now, for some of you listening, Mike, if you want to call in and speak live, you can call 626-698-0990. And you could call in right now, and I can put you live on the show through my phone. That's my own phone that goes right there, 626-698-0990. Furthermore, if you want to be a guest on other days, you can call 888-888-6582. That's the law offices again. That's Vincent Davis's office. And tell them that Bob Pace said you call in and schedule a time you want to be a guest. And you can pick a day and we'll get you. My producer will schedule you in. So, and lastly, the third thing that people are, okay, this is what Mike is doing. Mike is communicating through private comments, not private comments, but public comments that are displayed, supposed to be displayed on the screen. I don't see them there, so something's, wonder why they're not being, oh, okay. There. Okay. Mike had a question, meaning you're not ready for CPS allegations, discovery, and findings, which have the time they're buffing so they can get a protective order. Yeah, there's a lot of stall tactics they do. See, Mike, or take your children by, yeah, they will take it. They make it a story, like when I was talking about abuse, physical abuse and neglection. If it's extreme enough, they'll take your children that day. That day, when they finally buffled their way into my life, into my home, after a month or 2 trying, they immediately took our children because they thought the extremely of having boxes piled 3 boxes high were suddenly going to endanger the livelihood of these remarkable children. They loved their parents. They were A students in school. One was in a private high school working on through a STEM program. That's where they take a science class and a technology class, engineering class, a math class. I'm talking about calculus. They're taking stuff that you normally don't take to college. So he was on a robotic engineering thing at the private school. The middle child was at a good middle school, old middle school, but still good, still was prepping for a good high school to go to and college. And she was pursuing her interest. The youngest one was at the elementary school that was really great, state-of-the-art elementary school. So They that day went to school and took all my children. They had interviewed, by the way, I want to tell you, they interviewed the children. Um, let me see. Yeah, they do kidnapping. They do legal kidnapping. You're right, Mike. You're right. You're right. You're right. Um, uh, so, with that being said, uh, they came to my school, my children, and interviewed them. And we were called as parents to come to the school. We didn't know what it was about. You're not allowed to sit in with your children being interviewed because the social workers are afraid that you'll coach them. You know who coaches the children and alienates the children? CPS. It isn't parents. It isn't family members. It's the social workers, the CPS workers. They alienate your children and they kidnap them. You're so right. They were trying to find some hiccup our child would say. Well, our children were pretty smart. They said, there's nothing wrong at home. We get showers, we get food, we're fed. Dad is going through a hard time. Why don't you help out my dad? He needs help. He needs help for a storage area to put his parents' belongings. If there's things wrong with it, he needs help. You don't sit there and downplay or destroy a person that had worked hard all his life since 18. I've worked 59 years now, and I'm 74 years old. And at 65, I'm dealing with child protection services. It's my fault. I still have young children. I have two groups of children. My older children, three of them are old. They're all in their 30s and 40s. They lead productive lives. There's nothing wrong with them being brought up or anything. My youngest three are the ones that said, oh my God, they must be horrible parents because the family members are saying all this stuff. They believe everything, just like the guy the other day from North Carolina said they believe that their children ate carpet. It's crazy. And every place I've heard from um, has stories that say that of kidnapping their children. The slave trade is in CPS. It isn't in there. They right away want the children. Why do they want them? They want money, and they have money hungry people. The money is never watchdogged or anything. They have no accounting services to account for the money they spend or what they do. I'm glad they have money to help out with families and children, but it should be to help out, not make a profit at the expense of destroying a family. They destroyed my family. They destroyed it. Um, and Mike, they will destroy you. And I know you say you probably can't afford an attorney, but you need to get an attorney. And that's the only way I was able to get my two boys back, even though I lost my daughter. And I regret at the beginning. So anyway, they tried to investigate him in school, months before they came to my home. I mean, to forcefully enter my home, what I thought was forcefully, but they that day when they came to my home and forcefully meaning that they thought some serious things were going on, and I said, "Hey, I have nothing to hide. There's no drugs, or we didn't do drugs. We didn't have a weird business or something like that. I mean, we had a beautiful home. We had a walk-in swimming pool. We had an English garden on the other side. Yes, the yard was a little untidy. I will agree with that. Because why? I couldn't afford the landscaper anymore. I had a job. I had to cut corners. And that's a big yard to take care of because I had a big home and a big yard at the beach. You normally don't see properties like that. Normally, you only have 5 feet between homes. I think it was a kind of a weird corner lot home where both sides of my neighbors where the homes were at least 15 feet from each other. So that was good for California. Um, and there's no such thing as legal kidnapping. They use guys to kidnap. But what they're doing is wrong. They're illegally doing it. They don't follow the laws. Again, without an attorney, how are you going to know the laws? Um, I had mentioned a 388. And again, I want to talk about that again. It's a petition that's typically brought to request a hearing to modify, change, or set aside a previous court order or to terminate juvenile court jurisdictions on the ground that there are changed circumstances or new evidence. So if you have changed circumstances or new evidence, you need to get your attorney or your public defender. And one guy said he went through 36 37 public defenders, and his 37th is his works for him. So if you will make changes or modifications of your previous order, your plan, it has to be done by 388. Well, you're not going to know about the 388 until the attorney who's trained and has experience knows about that. So also, there's a thing like Wicca. I don't know if anybody knows about um, the Indian Child Welfare Act. It's called ICWA, and it's not an Indian name. It's just abbreviation ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act. That is protects our native children. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, you're probably looking at me. I'm a Lakota Sioux and proud to be it. My great great grandmother's a full blooded Lakota Sioux. How do I have blonde hair? Well, my great great grandfather is a Norwegian Viking from Bergen, Norway, and they have blonde hair. And I guess his genes stuck in me, but there are some facial features of me that where Indian blood is there. But so why I bring that up is that some parents uh, with Native American children have better luck at having their children addressed by the tribe. The tribe takes care of their own. Uh, I'm from the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, and I have talked to them. I've talked to the Lakota University nearby and so forth. And I've been there. I was there in the summer of '72 and trying to find my ancestor stuff. One of the hardest things is there's no written records. And without my great great grandmother's Indian name, all I have is her white man's name, the name that she was going by. And my grandfather is from Bergen, Norway. I've tried over there to try to locate him, and or his family members or what it is like that. But why I say um, that you should look into, do you have Native American children, because they will help you get your children back. They will help you take care of your hiccups and so forth. There are proud people, the American Native Indians. By the way, the word Native American, I think, applies to anybody who's born and raised in the United States. We all are natives. They are just Native Indians, Native Indians who came, they're the first people that settled our continent. They came long before the Vikings did. Christopher Columbus never came to North America. He was down the West Indies. So, and I know that some people probably don't believe that. They probably still believe the world's flat and we didn't land on the moon. Again, just some sarcastic things like that. But, Native Americans are all of us. Native Indian Americans are the Indian people that came to via the land bridge off Alaska, that came in and settled in Alaska and into Canada and North America. And they went further down and met the Spanish. The Spanish and the Indians met and they became Mexicans and Incas, and they became all the different tribes that they have there. It's a mixture of cosmopolitan of people. South America, Central America is a mixture of Latin American and Indian blood and so forth. So, and they all branched out, and we had the Kon-Tiki expeditions that proved that Polynesians could have come from South America, probably did. The Raw expedition proved that people from Africa could come over to South America. So we had really three migrations of people early on. We had the Indians from the land bridge, and then people migrating out of South America to the South Pacific, and then people from the African continent over to the Brazil area and so forth. There we had the European invasion, and then we had people like the Irish that came over there. I mean, we all are cosmopolitan. We have the immigrants there, and I've already talked enough about them in there too. So my day, the children were taken away and put into what they called a shelter where they'd be safe. Well, the shelter they put them in happened to be next to the dependency courts and the local prison, and that was going to be safe. And the children were put. They had a play area outside, but there was a bee's nest that stung the hell out of the children, and they were overcrowded, and they weren't getting the food. It was dirty. It wasn't clean, and that's what they call protecting your children. it was a joke. It was a farce of a joke. And then on top of that, uh, they have a meeting later that week, which is called a planning meeting, and where they talk about how you're going to have your family member or have somebody take care of them. We had family members, and that ended up being bad for 3 months. They were kept together, family. But meanwhile, they thought because I had my parents' belongings and stuff, and all these allegations that my wife's family members made were all true. And the only thing they could come up with is yes, you and your wife did talk in front of the children, and that was wrong. And yes, you do have your parents' belongings in a clutter effect. So in the end, we were charged. Well, we were charged, and we were charged a lot of things at first, but and they also did a criminal charge again because the detective who was supposed, I thought, going to help me and stuff, ended up turning it over to the prosecuting attorney who tried to level criminal charges against me. And for a year, they stalled and stalled in Heaven Hall. They did 3 counts of neglect and 3 counts of sex, and they didn't tell you what it was. Little did they know that's a trump card they use to negotiate something. So they say at the end of a year and a half, I said, we need our trial. And I should have stuck my grounds that, but they said, hey, we'll offer you something. We'll drop the 3 counts of, let me see here. There's another one here. They should give money to parents instead of foster parents. A lot of parents are just need a little help. I agree with you. I mean, in a way, sometimes it's hard to give somebody money. So one way they can do is they can pay the bills. If I need help with the storage, they can pay the storage. That's fine. They worry that if they give you the money, that there are some bad parents who go out and drink more alcohol or take more drugs or run off with the money or one of them separates. So that's why they don't give money to parents. And I'm all for that. But if they pay the bills or bring you the groceries or give you a food card to buy groceries or stuff like that, I was at a quandrum where um, I wasn't getting much help from social services for food or medical. My social security ended up last year being increased because of cost of living, and it put me out of the food stamp uh, foods. I get no food and no medical. My poor wife needs some medical attention. It's been really bad. Um, it's really been really bad. Um, so, with that being said, it got worse and worse for me. Um, and so when they finally, I thought to myself, well, I need to get this off my back. If I admit I'm guilty, um, maybe it'll all go away because they threw in a caveat. We'll drop the 3 sex charges against you and your wife. In fact, we'll drop all the charges against your wife in the criminal matter. They were trying to do a misdemeanor criminal matter. Uh, Neglect is a misdemeanor, and when you're a misdemeanor, you'll suddenly have a probation officer. You have a nightmare. They inspect your home once a week, and they come back with their combat boots and all their combat gear, and your neighborhood is looking at who are the strange people that come to see them. And so what I did is I told them that they're my friends from high school. They're on duty. They just stop by and say hi. That's how I diffuse that. But I had no problem with them. You're drug tested every week. It was a waste of time because this lasted for a year. You know how many drug tests they did? Uh, 300, excuse me, once a week, 52 drug tests. And who pays for that? Us taxpayers pay for that. It was unnecessary. Never any of them turned out positive. I never did a drug, never had a history of drugs. So you have to go through all kinds of courses at your expense. It's really it was something that I should never. Um, I should have stayed on it and said I'll fight it to the end with a jury trial. And I think dependency court should be a jury trial. I think you should be in court all the time. We need to find judges, and right now it's election year, so you need to go out and vote good judges, family law judges. Our judge was a property collision damage judge. He knew all about cars and how to fix fenders and stuff, but he didn't know how to fix children. They lie and deceive. We're running short on the time right now. Um, I want to thank Mike for his comments, and I hope tomorrow you can call in, Mike. I'm on every day, twice a day. I'm on at 10 o'clock uh, a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and again at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, twice a day, 6 days a week. And I try to share my story and cover things. I have lots of topics I can talk to you about and lots of help. But you should get an attorney. The attorney that call in is 888-888-6582. That's Vincent W. Davis. He's a very experienced family law attorney with trial experience, and he will give you a free 30-minute up to an hour consultation on strategies of how to fight child protective services and how to win. That same number, 888-888-6582, is if you want to speak on the show. So I I hope that you all got something out of this show. I know that we didn't have anybody really talk too much, except again thank Mike who inputted some comments there. Um, we also had another person called We Are Real Human too. So they've been on before too. So we had Real Human and Mike Player Unlimited. And again, it'd be nice if you put what state you're from, so I get an idea where it's coming from. But I love to hear from you all, but I also want you not to give up on your families. Do not give up. Make sure, I know you all love your children and you want to get them back with you. So don't give up. And I'll see you next time. And I want you the best of happiness in the new year and best of luck. This is Bob Pace signing off.